We can no longer say that nobody is above the law. Welcome to Law and Society. Please subscribe and let's talk about the rule of law in this obituary. Donald Trump defeated our legal system and institutions. Our institutions are only as good as the people who run them. And Donald Trump defeated our politics and our rule of law by playing the delay game and blame others game. And he had help. The institutions helped him. Donald Trump had, first of all, money is a big thing here. What has come out of the last 4 years since the January 6th insurrection, because that's what it was, is that we have one half of the country and the popular vote in the 2024 election saying we don't care about it. And our institutions failed by not being expedient with prosecuting Donald Trump for his crimes. Now, I have withheld criticizing Merrick Garland and the DOJ for not being able to hold Donald Trump accountable for his crimes, because perhaps there was this last hope that the American people would either turn out in a high number to reject Donald Trump, or there wouldn't be as many people who believed in Donald Trump's ideology that they would elect him. There was this thing, we're going to beat him at the polls, because the decent thing is to not support somebody who tried to overthrow our government. Now, I said many times, many times, Democrats need to reach out to the people. Democrats need to go out and do more work with the people. Democrats need to reach out and discuss the things, not just with the demographics that we are focused on, but also for example, go on the Joe Rogan show. Those things are fine. But what stopped our justice system, our Department of Justice, from prosecuting Donald Trump in the first year of the new administration coming in? It was prosecuting all of the other cases. But somehow Merrick Garland's DOJ decided to wait it was 2 years to properly indict Donald Trump. Because maybe they also had in the back of their mind that no reasonable American would want to re-elect this person. So we have until 2026, which is something that Merrick Garland said that, we have, or was it Merrick Garland? Somebody said that we have until 2026 because that's about the statute of limitations, because the DOJ was taking so long to prosecute Donald Trump. Now, that was a delay from the DOJ. And we want to know, we have a right to know why it took them so long. And I hope that we learn about it. Then we go to the courts. In the federal case in DC, which I am concerned about, and there's the concern about the Mar-a-Lago and the New York and the Georgia cases, but my focus has always been on the case that stems from the January 6th insurrection. So on that note, the court's Judge Chutkan was expedient. But what Donald Trump did, and Donald Trump's lawyer openly warned or whatever, put on notice Judge Chutkan about, is that they're going to flood the court with motions. And that's exactly what they did. They did it with the immunity thing. Judge Chutkan wrote an opinion against it, and they took it to the Supreme Court. And what did the Supreme Court do? Instead of reaching an opinion within the week, because we are getting closer to an election and the candidate is the criminal defendant, and there is a thing about the public having a right to a speedy trial as well. The efficiency of that, if nothing else, the economic efficiency of that should be reason enough for the appellate court and then the Supreme Courts to deliver their opinions as soon as possible. But they didn't. They waited 3 weeks here, 4 weeks there. And the Supreme Court waited until the very last day. In fact, went one extra day, went to July 1st instead of the traditional last day of June when their opinions come out of the term that they have just, um, they are concluding. So they waited until that last day, the last opinion, to release Trump versus the United States. So from July until uh, the election, there was time for the DOJ to get it back for the immunity hearing, to be able to tell the American people what happened, to be able to remind the American people what happened. But there simply wasn't enough time because Donald Trump's money and Donald Trump's lies that the media broadcasted all throughout, because Donald Trump would come out and lie, and those lies would be broadcasted, and then he would go out and lie on the far right media, and those would be broadcasted. And you have his moneyed lawyers who are throwing out motion after motion after motion after motion, and the judge can't really sanction them because each motion is a little bit different than the other one. And the court saw this happening over and over and over again, didn't rule on the frivolity of it, didn't rule on whether this was taking way too long, and therefore it became the judiciary's responsibility to expediently push it through the Supreme Court. No, that didn't happen. What happened instead was that the Supreme Court delayed Donald Trump's ruling. The Supreme Court gave Donald Trump more time. A slow DOJ and the slow courts and Donald Trump's motions and his money and his lies caused the judicial institutions to fail. And the judicial institutions failed on their own merits as well, because the Supreme Court could have very well given out their opinion in 4 days like they did in Bush v. Gore. But clearly, it wasn't urgent enough for them to show the American people what Donald Trump did and the fact that he cannot get back into office again. And they didn't have, it wasn't, I'm mixing up political with the legal part right now. But the fact of the matter is that the whole country and all its institutions, starting with the DOJ and the FBI and the federal courts, saw this thing happening. And they did not move this forward expediently for whatever reason. And then you obviously have the GOP establishment. Mitch McConnell had the chance of impeaching not impeaching, impeachment was done in the House, of having a trial and successfully disqualifying Donald Trump from holding office. But Mitch McConnell didn't do that. His excuse that he didn't have jurisdiction to do that to a former president, because by the time of the impeachment trial, Donald Trump was already a former president and not an incumbent. Mitch McConnell could have done it another way, which would have convicted Donald Trump in Senate and he would be disqualified. There was the chance where the Supreme Court of Colorado held that Donald Trump incited an insurrection, that Donald Trump is disqualified under the 14th Amendment, Section 3. The Supreme Court refused to take that approach either. They wanted there to be a unified approach to the country when it came to the picking of a president, yes, but there cannot be that the hypocrisy and irony here is that the same court ruled not very long before they ruled here that women's rights can be decided on a state level. And in the case for disqualification as well, they read into the 14th Amendment that states can stop state officials from disqualify state officials based on the 14th Amendment, Section 3, but federally, the president cannot be held to that standard. That is not written anywhere in the 14th Amendment, Section 3, mind you. So the Supreme Court, in so many ways, betrayed the American people and betrayed the rule of law. And slowly and surely, in open and plain view killed it. The rule of law was overcome by institutional failures, Donald's disinformation, and money. Why? Because I now firmly believe that America has the best justice system that money can buy. If you have money, if you have motion after motion after motion, then you are very much in good hands in the American justice system. But if you're poor, the story is very different. Don't think that the rule of law won't apply to us. We are common citizens. Poor people have fewer rights under the justice system that works in your favor if you have money, whether you're guilty or not. And, there will be many pundits, and we are going to keep going. This is not the death of our democracy. This is, in my opinion, in many ways, the death of the rule of law. Now there's an exception to the statement that nobody is above the rule of law. Donald Trump already made the exception of breaking the tradition of a peaceful transfer of power. That was 4 years ago. And here he breaks the norm that we had in our democracy that nobody is above the rule of law. So the rule of law did die a little bit. And the rule of law did fail the American people. This will go down in history as one of the biggest failures of the Department of Justice. While the Department of Justice has had a lot of success in holding the foot soldiers accountable, including for seditious conspiracy, the justice system failed in holding the chief insider, the chief conspirator accountable for his crimes. And now he will be immune from it for the next 4 years. And by then, the statute of limitations will have told. So Donald Trump gets off scot-free for trying to overthrow the government of the United States, for defrauding the United States, for conspiring to obstruct official proceedings, conspiring to deprive us of our rights. And that is how it will be stated in history. Whether it is written in the Donald Trump's new Department of Education history books or not, notwithstanding, it'll be in the court record. And it'll be in Jack Smith's concluding report that the special counsel is required to give after the prosecution is concluded. And effectively now, that process has to start. I hope that Jack Smith gives a final report and that Merrick Garland at least does us this last service of publishing it unredacted so the American people may know everything and they may know the truth, whether there's justice or not. Because despite the fact that justice matters, despite the fact that the rule of law matters, in this case, it clearly didn't. In this case, it clearly failed to hold Donald Trump accountable. Thank you for listening. Take care.